Thank you, guys. My name is Jason Bruno, and I'm absolutely honored to be here. Just for a little bit of a background, one of those people who had no career plans. So basically, I'm just vibing with life. I do things I love when they show up. So how I got into beekeeping was basically, before beekeeping, my life revolved around people meeting as an improv comic and also as a corporate MC. So when COVID happened, you see, people couldn't meet, so it means all my income streams stopped. Like, I'll never forget March 13th, 2020. I was actually getting ready to go for an MC gig, and they called me, they're like, oh, Jason, don't come. And I was like, oh, do you know me? No, they're like, no, relax. It's the government that has shut down events. And within a few months, things got really, really tough. And true story, I kid you not, one night, randomly, I had this dream. And don't get me wrong, it wasn't like a glorious dream, it wasn't like an angel appearing. It was just a dream, just the way you'd have any dream and you don't think much about it. So in my dream, what happened was a bee appeared to me. And what the bee said, Jason, don't worry. If you take care of us, we will take care of you. I didn't think anything of it, but being the entrepreneur that I am, I thought, maybe selling honey would be a great idea. And that's how I started selling honey. And because people started asking me a lot of questions about honey, mbona hii ni kala tofauti? Why is this one tasting different? So that's what led me now to look for a place to do a beekeeping course. And I just fell in love, not with just beekeeping, but the actual insect. And maybe today we will understand why. Are you guys ready? Yeah. Thank you. I assume most of you have heard a lot about bees and everything. But just for context, today I wanted to focus more on what we as humans could possibly learn from bees. I think wisdom is a result of time and experience. You get heartbroken once, twice, then you learn better. You learn, maybe don't give your whole heart. Don't, ingia tu mguu kwanza, usiingie roho yote. So bees have been around for 130 million years. That means bees were around when dinosaurs were here. Humans have only, like Homo sapiens have been around for about 300,000 years, and the Homo genius has been around, like if you count Homo erectus and all those, have been around for 3 million years. But bees have been around for 130 million years. So it means there's a lot we could possibly learn from them. Clearly, humans are not doing a great job. I don't think we'll be here that much longer. Personally, if you ask me, based on how things are going. So I just wanted to draw comparisons in terms of what we could possibly learn from bees. So I want to talk about the community, the bees and how they operate, and then compare that to how humans operate. I also happen to be a certified honey sommelier. The second in Africa. There's only 2 of us in Africa at the moment. Thank you. So basically that's me. I do what I love, and I just vibe with life. Why humans have kept bees for thousands of years? Why do we keep bees? Anybody want to tell me? Okay, I'll get the first one out. Honey. But did you know that honey is the cheapest of all bee products? Honey is like bottom of the barrel, not in terms of like it's bad, but like it's the cheapest of all bee products. We have 6 main bee products, which is 1, honey, of course. Then there's venom, which sells for more than cocaine. I'm just saying. In Kenya, they're currently selling a gram for like 4,000 shillings. There's propolis. What else is there? There's beeswax, which can be used for so many things. Skincare products, polishing furniture, polishing leather, making of soap. There's so much you can do with beeswax. What else? I've said honey, propolis, venom, beeswax. There's royal jelly, which is a special diet that is fed specifically to the queen and also the babies at a very specific time in their life. Ladies, listen. If you want to stay forever young, royal jelly is the secret. It's rumored that the Queen of England, also, I don't know if you know this, but the monarchy, really value bees. They actually have bees they have the royal bees, that even when a queen dies, the royal beekeeper, it's his job to go and inform the bees that, hey, guys, listen, the queen is dead, now we have a queen. And I know she lived long, and it's believed that one of the reasons was because of royal jelly. So we've said royal jelly, propolis, venom, wax, honey. So anybody want to tell me any other reason you keep bees? And if there's anyone who's come specifically because you're interested in beekeeping, please do not just focus on the honey. There's a lot of opportunity around beekeeping, a lot. So part of the reason is, one, there is what we call apitherapy. This is therapy around bee products. So if you go to a place in Moranga called Kandara, there's a farm there called Bella Farm. And what they're doing is bee sting therapy. Unless you're allergic, bee stings, contrary to popular belief, are actually very good for you. When a bee stings you, it boosts your immunity. It sort of shocks your immunity. And that's what makes it good for your body. So if you're dealing with ailments like arthritis, gout, bee sting therapy is very good for you. Random fact, it is known that beekeepers have the longest life expectancy of all careers in life. Yeah. This is also because, if you look at ancient Greece, it is believed that the vibration of bees is they call it, quote unquote, the vibration of life. So just being around bees, it has a very calming effect on humans. So in ancient Greece, what they used to do for troubled humans, they would just send them to sit in front of a bee hive and just observe the bees. Being around bees, I can also personally say, since I started beekeeping, it's been very good for my personal mental health. There's honey and bee products, research and education. So you find institutions like ICIPE. I don't know if you guys have heard of ICIPE, International Center for Insect Physiology and Ecology. Surprisingly, my mom used to work at ICIPE. My late mom used to work at ICIPE, and they do a lot of research on insects. So they keep the bees specifically for research. If you go to the National Beekeeping Institute, which is where I trained, I did a short course there on beekeeping. They keep bees, but not necessarily for the honey, but specifically for training people. So if you want to get into training and stuff, that's also another avenue for keeping bees. Something else that's becoming really popular in the world, and I invite all of you to, I live in Kilifi, but I also have a farm in Moranga, and both of them are apiaries, and it's something we're calling api-tourism. I know in Dubai they're doing this a lot. In Thailand there's a bee farm that's doing this, where you have a bee farm, but your main income is from people coming to visit. Yeah, it's not necessarily just from the honey. Another one is spiritual and cultural practices. I don't know, we don't necessarily think about this a lot, but all our cultures, especially African culture, is very intertwined with bees. For example, in Kikuyu culture, all ceremonies have moratina, which comes from honey. If you go to Ukambani, ukiiba TV ya mtu anakutumia nyuki. So we have a very, very close relationship with bees. We just don't realize it. So I try to be an avid meditator. I believe 100% in meditation. And some of the best meditation sessions I've had was inside the apiary with the bees. Yeah. Another thing is pollination. In the US right now, and I think in Europe, the biggest honor for beekeepers is not necessarily the honey, it's the pollination services. We've used too much pesticides and stuff that we've lost a lot of our pollinators. So farmers in the West are paying a lot. I don't know if you guys saw this story recently where a truck, I think it was in Canada or the US, a truck that had, I don't know how many hundreds of beehives crashed on a highway, and that highway could not be used. This is because people are paying, literally paying for pollination services. And when you're doing pollination services, you charge per hive per day. So the last time I checked in Kenya, someone I spoke to was charging 700 shillings per hive per day. So if I bring 10 hives to your farm, I'm charging you 7,000 shillings per day just for having the beehives in your farm. I've said about mead. Mead, you know, is honey wine. Like in Ethiopia, that's the biggest one of tej. I don't know if any of you has been to Ethiopia. Their morat is called tej, and it's made from honey. Ethiopia is actually the largest producer of honey in Africa, followed by Tanzania. Huku katikati between Ethiopia and Tanzania, I don't know what we're doing. Yeah, and Kenya only meets 20% of our honey demand. There's real demand for good honey. I always say the biggest problem is not the honey, is that people don't trust the product. So if you have a product that people trust, I promise you, you're in for good business. So there's lots of reasons you can keep bees. I'm so proud of one of the groups that mentioned about elephant fences. I've done a project in Savo, closer to Savo in Taita Taveta, where we're putting bee fences on a rancher's, we're putting beehives on a rancher's farm. This is to prevent the bees, the elephants from coming into the farm. And it's a win-win. So the farmer is able to make some money, but also prevents the elephants from coming into the farm. Okay, so just to give a history of humans and bees, we've had a long relationship with bees. In 2020, I don't know if you know this, but some archaeologists found honey in one of the Egyptian tombs that was about 3,000 years old. Also, like I mentioned about Greece, the way they had the first coin in the world had a bee on it. In ancient China, they were using bee sting therapy for gout and all those ailments. Charlemagne, who was, I think, a Roman emperor or somebody, was using bee sting therapy for gout. This could be stories ajaba, I don't know. Also, let me just put a disclaimer. I'm just someone who has had a lot of experience with bees and different communities that work around bees. I'm not an entomologist, so I'm just someone who's had a lot of experience around bees and communities that work with bees. But the Aztecs in South America, it is believed, I don't know if this is true, but they used to use bee stings for penis enlargement. Yeah. Don't quote me anywhere. So, what you need to know about bees is that there are over 20,000 species of bees. And not all bees produce honey. Yeah? You see like the bee on the right, on the left, sorry. I don't know if you guys have seen in upcountry there's this thing that looks like a beetle. It's exactly that one. But it drills perfect holes in the wood. That's actually called a carpenter bee. Yeah, they're solitary bees, and they don't produce honey. So not all bees are honeybees. But for the purposes of today's lecture, when I talk about a bee, I'm talking about the honeybee. In Kenya, we have 4 main species of honeybees, and the scientific name for honeybees is Apis mellifera. We have Apis mellifera monticola. This is what we call the highland bee. They're found in the highland regions. This is Mount Kenya, Kilimanjaro sides, Mount Elgon, and also in the Aberdare. If you come to my apiary in Moranga, you'll get, because I'm right at the base of the Aberdare, you'll get to experience this. The thing with honeybees, so bees are not aggressive. Please get this out of your mind. Bees are not aggressive. Bees are actually defensive. If a bee stings you, it's stinging you to protect itself or the colony. But a bee will never just come randomly from anywhere and just come and sting you. So please, if you see a bee in your house, don't run for your doom. Just open your window. It will, in fact, the worst thing you can do when a bee comes to you is this. Yeah, just chill. And that's why beekeepers normally tend to be very calm, because a bee could come like right here and like yeah, just chill. Just chill. Like, a bee will not sting you for no reason. And when a bee stings you, it dies. So the last thing it wants to do is to sting you. But if they feel threatened, they will sting. So Apis mellifera monticola is found in the highland. I'm not trying to say, please don't go to your shags in Nyeri and say, Jason alisema monticola, they're not aggressive. No, they will sting you. They will sting you. But in comparison to other honeybees, they're not as defensive. Also because, so when it rains or when it's really cold, the bees don't leave the hive. Quite literally, when they make honey, they are saving for a rainy day. Because now they can't forage. So when bees make honey, it's their food. They're not making it for you. They're literally saving for a rainy day. Yeah, so because these places are really cold, they tend to spend a lot of time, like now in July, they spend a lot of time in the hive consuming the honey that they'd made for this season. So most people will say, oh, I had one of the groups saying, yeah, if you're in cold places, no, it's just that it's because of the climate of the place. It means that they spend more time in their hives so that you produce less honey in those areas. Then we have the Apis mellifera yemenitica. This is then we call it the northern bee. This is what you find in northern Kenya. And it's just like the people there. They move a lot. At the slightest sign of drought, these guys will hammer. So a beekeeper in northern Kenya needs to be aware of this and make provisions for the bees in case they're approaching drought season so that the bees can stay within their colonies. Have you guys heard of farmers feeding bees sugar water? We don't recommend this. We only recommend this in very, very extreme situations when things are really bad. You know, when you taste honey, you're literally tasting a place. And when you feed bees sugar water, they're not getting the nutrients that they need. So a lot of commercial bee farmers in the West do this to increase production, but I highly, highly don't recommend because it affects the health of the bees. This is something you can do as a measure, you know, like in extreme situations, but it shouldn't be an everyday thing. And then we have Apis mellifera litorea. This is what I have at my apiary in Kilifi. These are the coastal bees. What is the one thing you get in the coast all the time? Say again? There's heat. Yes, that's true. Which means they're not dealing with what Monticola are dealing with. But you're also dealing in coastal. You notice that even if you order a cup of tea, it comes with a flower. You enter your room, there's flowers. So there's plenty of forage for bees in the coast. So these bees tend to thrive throughout the year. Also, we have mangroves. Mangrove honey is highly, highly medicinal. Highly medicinal. And it's very highly priced. So, yeah, that's the one thing about the coastal bee. Then we have the real ninjas. This is Apis mellifera scutellata. Scutellata is called the savannah bee. This is why anytime you hear about honey, What are some of the places you will hear about? Kitui, Ukambani, Baringo. Yeah, these bees are highly productive, but they are also highly, highly defensive. Moto wa kuotea mbali. Hey, the bees in Kitui, Makueni, Kajiado, brah. They are highly, highly defensive, but they are also very good honey producers. So when a farmer in Murang'a or in Nyeri is getting one harvest a year, you'll find a farmer in Kitui is getting 2, 3 harvests, 4 harvests in the same year. These bees are also very, very good propolisers. What we mean by propolisers is that they make a lot of propolis. So let me explain what propolis is. So when a bee goes to a flower, it's going for 3 things. One is nectar. Nectar is what will, so basically they take the nectar. Bees have 2 stomachs. They have the real stomach and what we call the honey sac. So they will suck the nectar, go to the hive and regurgitate. So literally, honey is bee vomit. That's what eventually becomes honey. It mixes with some enzymes. So what they'll do is they'll pass the nectar from one bee to another. So if you look at bees closely, they always look like they're kissing. So yeah, so basically what they're doing is they're passing the nectar from one bee to another so that it mixes with certain enzymes. And then now that is what they regurgitate into the comb, into the cell. So you see what we call a cell, the one on the top left, yeah. So that shape you're seeing, that one kashimo, that's what we call a cell. So they'll regurgitate the nectar into the cell, and eventually that's what becomes honey. Now, that's nectar. Number 2, they collect pollen. Pollen they carry on their feet. We call them pollen pants. So if you look at a bee, sometimes they have yellow baggy pants, and that is pollen, which they deposit also into parts of the comb, which that they use to feed the babies. And then, once in a while, they will collect what we call resin. So you remember what we used to chew as chewing gum from a tree, from the tree bark when you cut the tree. That resin is what they turn into now propolis. And how they use propolis is if there are cracks in the hive or if there's a big entrance in the hive and it's letting in a lot of cold, so they will seal the entrance with propolis. Propolis is highly medicinal and one of the best, if not the best, immunity boosters. Yeah. So it was so interesting to hear somebody say that we colonize bees. No, we do not colonize bees. But bees live in a family called a colony. And each colony has 3 bees. What I need you to know about a colony is that a bee colony, the colony is more important than any individual within that colony. So think of it like a government. 100 years from now, if we come, there will still be a president. Won't be the same one, but there will still be a president. So it's a system. It's a system. And everybody, every individual bee, their lives are dedicating to doing everything for the good of the colony. We will not have a bee going out to feed, to find nectar, ishibe huko, then it comes back and says, hey, today, kumekuwa kubaya sana. You know the way Kenyan men sometimes will go kula nyama choma and then come home and, you know, the family is kula sukuma wiki. No. Everything they do is for the benefit of the colony. It is socialism. So, number 1, I'll look at the queen. There is only one queen in every colony. Under very special circumstances, sometimes you have 2 queens, but it's very rare. Say, for example, when a beehive becomes very full and there are too many bees, they need to do what we call a split. So what they will do is that the colony will split themselves into 2, and 2/3, so they will produce a new queen, and then what will happen is the older queen will leave with 2/3 of the colony to go start a new colony. Because maybe the hive is so full, they are so packed in there, so they have to produce a queen so that they leave. The reason they do that, I assume, is because the older queen is more experienced, and the reason 2/3 will leave and only 1/3 will be left. Remember, the guys who are being left already have the honey, they have the combs that have already been built. These guys are going to start from scratch. So they need more bees. Yeah, so that's the only special reason they would need 2 queens in the hive. Her main job, the queen's main job, is to lay eggs. She lays between 1,500 to 2,000 eggs every day. Every day. Every day. She lives for about 3 to 5 years and is most productive between year 2 and 3. Now, ladies, this will be very interesting for you. She mates only once in her lifetime with several drones, which are the male bees. And then she will store all those eggs in her, she has a special organ called the spermatheca. So she will store the eggs there. And anytime she lays an egg, she can either decide whether for it to be a male or female. Yeah. So like imagine if a girl could have sex once at 21, and then for the rest she'd be like, oh, I think I want to have a boy now. Yeah. Yeah. So that's the main role of the queen. So laying eggs every day. She's the one who lives the longest. Next, we have the worker bees. Also, the queen is female. She's fertile. The worker bees are female, but infertile. So they don't lay eggs. But a queen egg, the egg that becomes a queen comes from a worker bee egg. Yeah. So if a queen is laying an egg, so she can either fertilize it or not fertilize it before laying the egg. And that determines whether it becomes a male or female egg. So the worker bees are infertile female. These guys are the deep state of the colony. They literally do everything. If you've ever been stung by a bee, it was a worker bee. So basically, they build the combs, they produce the honey, they are the ones that go out to forage, which means they're the ones who go out collecting nectar. They produce all the bee products. So the honey, the venom, the propolis, all that, it's them. They clean the hive. So think of it this way. A worker bee will live for about 40 days. Yeah, they live for 40 days. And that's why the queen has to lay 1,500 every day. Because remember, every day they're losing another 1,500 to 2,000. Yeah? They protect the colony. They clean the hive. There are even some that are called undertaker bees, which their job is to remove the bees that are dead in the hive. They remove them outside. Yeah, so worker bees are really the engine of the colony. I like to call them the deep state. They can actually, if a queen bee is not producing enough eggs, say she's producing 500, that threatens the entire colony. It means it could lead to something called colony collapse. Maybe she's unwell. Maybe when the beekeeper was doing some beekeeping work, he misered her, and now she's not able to produce enough eggs. The worker bees will actually kill her so that they produce another queen. So what they do, they surround her, then she dies from heat. So they'll cover her they'll come, lots of them, and cover her in a ball. then she dies because it's too hot. So what they will do then, once they decide, so remember I told you a queen bee comes from a worker bee egg. So they will start feeding this particular egg. Once they decide this is it, this is the one, they will start feeding that particular egg, that special diet called royal jelly throughout its life. And then now that will emerge as a queen bee. They also cool the hive. When it's too hot, sometimes they flap their wings. They flap their wings so that to regulate the temperature within the colony. Also, when they collect nectar from the flowers and then deposit it into the comb, the moisture content is still so high. If you take that honey, it can haribika. Now that's what will become, it will become mead. So what they do, I don't know if you know, but honey doesn't expire. In Kenya, you're required, all products have to have an expiry. So KEBS have made leeway for 10 years. So if you look at any honey jar, it will say valid from this year to this year, usually 10 years. But generally, honey doesn't expire. As I said, they found a 3,000-year-old honey in one of the tombs in Egypt, and apparently it was still okay. So what they do, when the bees collect nectar and put it into the comb, the moisture content is still so high. So what some of the worker bees are doing are literally sitting on the comb, flapping their wings to extract the moisture. Only when the moisture is between 15 to 20%, 15 to 20% is what they will do something called capping, which, you see, the cells I showed you were open. You remember they were open? So the only thing we look for in honey to know it's ready for harvesting is that you look for what we call capped honey. If the honeycomb has like a seal on it, then you know that honey is ready for harvest. So the thing we look for is it has to be, the entire comb has to be at least 70% capped. That's how you know it's ready. So the bees that are extracting that moisture is the worker bees, and they're the ones who also seal the cells. They also are what we call the scout bees. They will have negotiations and someone will come and tell them, oh, by the way, 300 meters from this side, there's sunflowers. Also, like when the hive is really full, they have to send what we call scout bees, who are also the girls. When they go, they'll come back and give a report. Hey, guys, we found a good spot, so we can move. So those are the ones called the scout bees. They're literally scouting for a new location, scouting for nectar sources. So they'll come and discuss. Bee colonies are very democratic. They actually discuss, they say, and they have a perfect sense of direction. Perfect sense of direction. So they can be able, using the sun, they can be able to tell in the northern direction, 400 meters from here, there's a perfect nectar source there, and somebody else will go and confirm. Then that way, the others now will come, and then they'll go and go look for the nectar. But here's what you need to know. Think high school. I don't know if you went to a high school like mine, Breban in Moranga. When you got into school, everybody had very specific duties. If you are Form 1, most likely you are given toilets. Then when you go to Form 2, cleaning the dorm. Then when you go to Form 3, dining hall. Then by the time you're in Form 4, you have a window. It's the same with bees. When you're born, in the 40 days of the worker bee's life, every week they have very specific duties. So when a baby emerges from its cell, when it's born, it starts by cleaning its own cell, then starts by cleaning duty. Then every week it will have very specific duties. Towards the end of its life is when now it has the freedom. You know, remember the way when you're in Form 4, you could get leave out sheets like the way you want. Now the older bees are the ones that go out foraging. Security and foraging, those are the older bees until the end of their life. Yeah. The drones are the only males in the colony. So you see the queen bee, okay, go to the next one, and the worker bee are very similar. The only difference is that the abdomen on the worker bee is shorter. You see, the queen has a long abdomen. So that's one of the signs we look for, but they're basically more or less the same. Look at the eyes. The eyes are quite small. Now, let's go to the drones. You know, normally we say your head has eyes. With the drone, we say the eyes have a head, because the whole head is just eyes. And then they're very short, stout, and very hairy. They are male, as I've mentioned, and their main job is to mate. That's their only job, is to mate, and they do not mate with the queen from their colony, because, you know, that's your mom, ew. So, quite literally, drones are kept men. They don't sting. Like if you invaded a colony, if you invaded a hive, the drone would be like, hey, kuna watu wamekam. Sort that out. They don't go foraging. And in a hive, a good colony will have about 20 to 60,000 bees. You'll only have about 150. So what normally happens when it's mating season, the drones will fly to what we call a mating zone, and then they will mate with queens from other colonies. They have to be taken care of, because the same way somebody else is taking care of the drones who will mate with your queen, so you have to return the favor. Yeah. So, and then one really interesting thing about the drones, remember I told you when a worker bee stings you, it dies? When a drone mates, it dies, because their genitals explode. So literally, they come and go. And they only get one shot. So, some interesting random facts about bees. Bees have 5 eyes. Yeah. They recognize faces very well. Human faces, they recognize faces. They recognize voices. So as a beekeeper, one of the things I've learned from traditional beekeepers, they encourage us, is to keep talking to your bees. So for example, if you come to my apiary, any of them, because of my interaction with my bees, also if you look at my Insta stories today, I posted me chilling with my bees, it's because they know me. It's same thing, think like a dog. If you come, they probably sting you. But with time, they recognize your scent and your face and your pheromones. So over time, I think they stop recognizing you or viewing you as a threat. They can measure distance. So what they do, it's called festooning. So when they're building the combs, you saw how perfect they are. They usually hold their legs to measure distance. They navigate using the sun. So they have a perfect sense of direction. They communicate using pheromones, and that's why, as beekeepers, we use smoke. A lot of people just think, washa moshi, washa. No, it's literally because bees communicate using pheromones. So when we use smoke, you're literally trying to mask the pheromones. So with colonies that I'm comfortable with, I actually don't work with the smoker. Yeah, but and bees have, so think about this. If this is a bee farm and all your tables are beehive, each beehive has a different personality. So these guys, like in my farm in Moranga, I have one we call KDF, because those ones are just crazy. They love to sting. They're just, like even just approaching, they're already stinging you. And there are some that are so chill. That personality, we believe they get that personality from the queen. But every beehive represents a different personality. So please, do not visit somebody and you're like, oh, the bees are so chill. And then you go to Makueni or Kitui. And like, yeah, I was at a farm last week and they were so chill. Yeah, you will die. Utakufa vibaya wewe. So they communicate through pheromones and also dance. They have what we call a waggle dance. So they dance to show direction, to communicate, and also they debate a lot within the hive. So like if, for example, they're having difference of opinion with somebody, one bee saying, this side has better nectar sources, there are sunflowers there, and others are like, no, there's a lavender field there. So they communicate using dance. It takes 12 worker bees their entire life to make a single teaspoon of honey. One worker bee will produce only a 12th of a teaspoon. So imagine when you buy a kilo, how many worker bees have been involved in making a whole kilo of honey. So this is what human beings, I think, can learn from bees. Teamwork beats individual brilliance. Because like I said, everything the bee does is for the benefit of the colony. Leadership is service. Everyone matters. Even the kept men in the hive, they matter. Communication is everything. Bees communicate with each other a lot. They're always discussing, they're always negotiating, always making decisions. It's always so we call a bee colony a superorganism in the sense that even though there are so many, they operate like one. They operate like, we call it a hive mind. Like it's all unity of purpose is what they have. Environment is all we have. We are part of the environment. So literally, when you taste honey, you are tasting a place. When you taste honey, you are tasting a place. And no two honey samples will taste the same. This is determined by the nectar source. I'll show you a picture of different honey samples that I've looked at from different parts of Kenya. And the taste, the color, the viscosity, the crystallization, everything is as a result of the environment that honey has been made from. So please do not buy honey from your beekeeper and tell him, mbona saa hii is not as light as your last time. You could have honey from the same location, different times of the year, and they will look, taste, and smell absolutely different. Because it depends on what's flowering at the time. You watched a bit of the clip that we shot a documentary in Nepal. I don't know if you guys have heard about the honey hunters of Nepal, the Gurung tribe. On the cliffs, that honey is highly medicinal, but it's also hallucinogenic. It makes you hallucinate, and it can kill you. But the reason that honey has that property is because that particular flower grows in that particular part of Nepal. It's called the rhododendron. It's the national flower of Nepal. And again, it's hard to cover an entire beekeeping topic in 30 minutes to an hour. So I wanted to also leave a lot of time for question and answers. Any myths that you have, I'm happy to answer. So yeah, thank you so much.